Theresa May could be ousted from in.The and replaced by a Brexiteer dream team if she tries to keep Britain in a customs union with the EU, Tory MPs have reportedly warned. Eurosceptics are plotting to install Boris Johnson as PM with Michael Gove as his deputy and Jacob Rees-Mogg as Chancellor if Mrs May goes soft on Brexit. Mr Johnson is said to have told one of the plotters that the cavalry is coming and he stands ready to swoop in. The Tories are deeply divided over their negotiating strategy ahead of crunch meeting of Mrs May's Brexit War cabinet later this week. Brexiteers fear the PM is paying too much heed to Remain backers including Chancellor Philip Hammond and will try to push for the UK to stay in a customs union with the EU. They warn this would seriously hamper Britain's ability to sign free trade deals with other countries around the world. News of the plot is a major blow to the authority of the PM and comes just 24 hours before she hosts chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier at in.The for lunch. Meanwhile, senior Tory Bernard Jenkin accused ministers of being vague and divided around Brexit. Meanwhile, Liam Fox, the international trade secretary and leading Brexiteer, has told allies he is ready to quit the cabinet if the UK stays in a customs union, the Sunday Times claims. The Brexit War cabinet will meet on Wednesday and Thursday to agree Britain's negotiating stance. Plans have been drawn up for the UK to keep trading goods tariff-free with the EU and negotiate separate trade deals on services with non-EU countries. But Brexiteers want to be able to do free trade deals on goods with the rest of the world as well. Eurosceptics are threatening to issue a tsunami of letters to the Tory backbench 1922 committee unless Mrs May backs down and bows to their demand. A leadership contest will be automatically triggered if the committee receives 48 letters. And in.The is said to have placed around 10 ministers on suicide watch amid fears they could walk out to trigger a leadership election. News of the conspiracy comes after Mr Rees-Mogg warned the Prime Minister she would be making a grave error if she failed to deliver the hard Brexit favours. He said, "We do not wish to be in a customs union, the customs union or an customs union." Meanwhile, in an interview with the Mail on Sunday, Mr Rees-Mogg failed to kill off claims he could be installed in Downing Street, saying he is flattered by the speculation. He also compared himself to Michael Heseltine, who famously denied planning to challenge Margaret Thatcher before doing precisely that. According to bookmakers, City tycoon and devout Catholic Mr Rees-Mogg is strong favourite to be the next Tory leader, with his reputation enhanced by his cool response to protesters who disrupted his speech in Bristol. In a wide-ranging interview, Mr Rees-Mogg warned Mrs May against a Brexit fudge, saying she must follow Mrs Thatcher's dictum of avoiding muddle, fiddle-fuddle. He also suggested it was pro-soft Brexit Chancellor Philip Hammond, not him, who was undermining Mrs May. Mr Rees-Mogg urged the PM to resist pressure from Mr Hammond to retain partial access to the EU customs union, and he hit back at a jibe by Tory foe that is a barmaid's idea of a gentleman. Mr Rees-Mogg's growing power as leader of the hardline group of Brexit Tory MPs, the European Research Group, has caused alarm among soft Brexit Tories. Former Minister and leading Remainer Anna Soubry has said she will quit the party if Mr Rees-Mogg, who opposes abortion, including in rape cases, and also opposed gay marriage, becomes leader. A senior minister said last night, "Anna is not alone. Many of us would never support a Rees-Mogg government." His views are from the arc and would make Jeremy Corbyn in number 10 a certainty. Among the Conservatives appalled by the growing influence in Downing Street of the so-called Mogmentum phenomenon is Mr Hammond. One ally of the Chancellor said, "The PM is so weak, it's as if Rees-Mogg is the de facto PM." Pressed to respond by this newspaper, Mr Rees-Mogg said, "It's preposterous. I wouldn't dream of ordering the Prime Minister." He was simply trying to help shape Brexit and completely entitled to express my opinion. But he made it clear Mrs May faces trouble if reports she plans to back calls by Mr Hammond for the UK to retain partial access to the customs union after Brexit are true. It is not consistent with the Prime Minister's avowed policy, so I don't expect it to happen. It would be a grave error, because it would fail to get the benefits of Brexit. Muddle, fiddle, fuddle, as Margaret Thatcher used to say. Was he suggesting Mrs May was finished if she didn't do what he wanted? Of course I'm not. She has my unconditional support. Leadership elections tend to do the party and the country harm. How did he feel about overtaking Boris in the leadership stakes? Very flattering. I know this is the Michael Heseltine formula, but I just can't see the circumstances. Lord Heseltine famously used the same mantra when asked if he planned to oust Mrs Thatcher. It turned out he was fibbing. He brought her down in 1990, but was beaten to number 10 by John Major. Mr Rees-Mogg is also equivocal when asked why he has never said he does not want to be leader. Want is the wrong word. As you see in Mrs May, it is a duty rather than a want. His reply leaves open the prospect that if fellow Tory MPs ask him to be leader, he will regard it as his duty to accept. But he leaves no room for doubt. that the political loathing between him and Mr Hammond is mutual, and launched a new attack on Mr Hammond over claims that the Treasury tried to fiddle the figures in a leaked Brexit report that forecast dire economic consequences for leaving the EU. Asked if he blamed Mr Hammond, he said, "Either he is not in control of his department, or he is allowing his department to do this." He needs to answer the questions as to what the Treasury is up to. Mr Rees-Mogg said his comments were more in response to what is going on from the Treasury than me trying to push the Prime Minister in any direction. I am supporting her. Others may not be. Either Mr Hammond was in breach of his duty to obey the Cabinet's collective responsibility rule, or he was allowing his department to freelance. Mr Rees-Mogg said he could not be more different to Donald Trump, but said that in Britain, as in the US, there was a feeling that the establishment had not given ordinary people what they wanted. Mr Rees-Mogg dismissed writer and ex-Tory MP Matthew Parris's description of him as a barmaid's idea of a gentleman, saying, "I take it as a compliment." Unlike Mr Parris, I'm not snooty about barmaids. By Glenn Owen for the Mail on Sunday. An ally of Boris Johnson last night denied claims at Westminster that he was considering resigning to trigger a leadership contest against Theresa May. Security Minister Ben Wallace, a former officer in the Scots Guards, was named by a senior party source as being on a watch list held by Tory whips. But last night Mr Wallace protested his loyalty to the Prime Minister, saying, "I am doing the job I love." Which in politics is rare. Heroes are something I couldn't be less interested in. When asked about the watch list, he said, "It isn't the whips who believe that, I know for a fact." It is others. Another minister on the whip's watch list is Defence Minister Tobias Ellwood, who is understood to be frustrated at not being promoted to the cabinet in Mrs May's botched reshuffle last month. He is angry at the Treasury over proposed defence cuts, and sources say he has a tense relationship with his Secretary of State, Gavin Williamson. Number 10 considered moving Ellwood in the reshuffle due to the terrible personal chemistry between him and Mr Williamson. Now party figures fear Ellwood may be tempted to resign. The 52-year-old, who was a captain in the Royal Green Jackets, became a national hero during last year's terrorist attack on Parliament, when he gave mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to police officer Keith Palmer, who later died of his injuries. Mr Ellwood told the Mail on Sunday, resign, at the very moment when there's a duty to step forward. No. I'm donning my suit of armor, with the S of S Secretary of State for the mother of all battles with the Treasury. Theresa is not natty, but she's our best bet. Anyone who has caught a glimpse of the news since Christmas will think this government is only interested in two things: Brexit and who leads the Conservative Party. It feels as if, whatever we try to do, everything is viewed through the prism of how we leave the European Union and whether Theresa May is up or down. To be fair, we don't help ourselves. If I had £1 for every flappy-mouthed friend of him or source close to her who's given me a headache this past month, I'd probably be on my way to matching the Football Premier League's record-breaking January transfer window. But look beyond the wall of sound created by unnamed colleagues blabbing away, and there is plenty this government is doing for voters. We've got unemployment down to a 40-year low, the highest number in real jobs since 1975. We've increased the national living wage and cut income tax to put extra cash in your pay packets. We've put a further £2. £8 billion into our NHS, £1.3 billion for schools, and cut stamp duty for 95% of first-time buyers. And in December, the Prime Minister achieved something that many of the sneerers and doom-mongers thought would never happen. She and the EU agreed sufficient progress had been made in the first round of our Brexit talks. Leadership isn't about soaking up the glory when things are easy. It is about picking up the mantle after a national debate that divided the nation. It's calmly and carefully planning for the future of the UK outside the European Union. And it's crafting to deliver the crucial progress every step of the way. Whether you voted Leave or Remain, we can all agree that Brexit is going to change this country. Theresa May has set out a plan to overcome the challenges and grasp the opportunities that Brexit provides. Getting on with this huge job, that's leadership.So. When you see some commentator telling the Prime Minister she should do this or say that, just remember what she has on her plate and the successes she has already achieved. Triggering Article 50, setting out a plan for the future, successfully negotiating with Parliament and the 27 other nations to complete the first half of the Brexit deal. And through all this, never losing sight of the promise she made on the steps of Downing Street to get things done at home and build a stronger economy and fairer society for everyone. We have the right person in charge to keep up this work and focus on the job in hand as we build that country that truly works for everyone. She might not have the natty chant or the online warriors, but this is a Prime Minister who will never stop fighting for you or this country she loves.